Hello, and welcome to this series on proving culture. This is a three-part series of conversations on the subject of workplace culture and how it can be observed, measured, and proven. I encourage everyone to view all three of the proving culture sessions on this YouTube channel. In this first conversation on proving culture, let's find out what exactly is workplace culture. There are a variety of means to consider understanding what workplace culture is so that it can be recognized and evaluated as part of future ISO certification activities and any other workplace culture assessment activities your organization may embark upon. A comprehensive approach to support assessment of culture is to identify and evaluate observable or qualitative elements, as well as accountable or quantifiable elements to make a full assessment for the existence and effectiveness of workplace culture. So let's start by talking about qualitative factors to identify workplace culture. A popular expert on workplace psychological safety, Amy Edmondson, describes in her book, The Fearless Organization, that workplace culture is the shared beliefs, values, and behavioral norms that shape how people interact and work together in an organization. She goes on to describe workplace culture as the invisible force of shared beliefs, norms, and behaviors that determine whether employees feel safe to speak up, take risks, and collaborate openly. So, end game goal of workplace culture is that shared beliefs, norms, and behaviors, and that it's working. So how are we going to see improve an invisible force? Well, stick around and follow these sessions on workplace culture, where we're going to look into that very thing: is how do we see it? How do we prove it? So I hope that you'll join for all three sessions. A culture is achieved through plans, policies, tasks, and actions taken by individuals and groups of individuals to create an environment to produce a workplace culture. Here's where we can begin to identify elements, some of which may have existed for a period of time within your organization that now manifest as an observable culture. There are 6 key elements of workplace culture that Edmondson explores and discovers in the Fearless Organization. These are the kinds of things we hope that all can see, feel, and appreciate. From an assessor or auditor perspective, documenting their existence is key to proving a workplace culture exists. As you might expect, let's expect to talk to a lot of people within an organization to really understand that effectiveness. So she goes on to talk about elements like psychosocial or psychological safety. Is it in place in the organization? Are there open communications within an organization? Can you see that? Can you foster that? Can you realize that? Is there a learning-oriented environment, regardless of where people are within an organization? There's that open-mindedness to always be learning, right? Certainly a respectful and inclusive environment and supportive leadership are part of a strong workplace culture, as well as accountability and compassion. And that goes for everybody within an organization. Is that evident? So these are some key elements that we want to observe. Yes, they're somewhat qualitative, but we can put our finger on it. We can document what it is and how it is working, right? So it's not the goal of these sessions to deeply explore the field of workplace culture and how to develop and implement programs to achieve culture. There is a vast amount of information on workplace psychosocial safety and workplace culture development that has emerged over the past 3 decades. I highly recommend 3 recent titles for anyone interested in learning more about the subject, aligned with modern thought on the subject. These will give you a good foundation for what it is and how do we use it to create a better workplace. Amy Edmondson's The Fearless Organization, I've mentioned already, is certainly a modern day primer on workplace culture and how to approach the challenge. A must first read on the subject. It is the book everyone talks about in the business of workplace culture. Just published, David Daniels' Psychosocial Hazards Are Real is a great first person perspective on psychosocial hazards from a safety practitioner's standpoint, told through a series of very relatable stories as you take the journey through ISO 45003. I'll talk about 45003 later on here and deep dive in the next session. David Lynn's Principle to Practice is a roadmap for taking principles of workplace culture into practice from a highly experienced health, safety, environmental professional, now a distinguished advisor and lecturer on the subject. This book is a core element of his training offerings to organizations who want to go on that journey to develop a workplace culture. What is it all about? That's one of his specialty areas. The book is a good roadmap, as I said, for all of that. So let's go a little bit deeper and explore four key concepts, again, that Amy Edmondson set forth to organizations beginning their journey in workplace culture development. Culture as a climate for speaking up. Edmondson emphasizes that culture is especially evident in whether employees feel safe to speak up, offer ideas, admit mistakes, or challenge the status quo without fear of embarrassment or punishment. Norms and expectations. Workplace culture, in her view, is shaped by these norms and expectations that govern behavior. In psychologically safe environments, the culture supports learning, candor, collaboration, and mutual respect. So are those the norms that you have now? If they're not, this is certainly part of the journey to establish those as the norms and expectations. Leaders do play a central role in creating and reinforcing culture. Edmondson argues that leadership behavior, particularly how leaders respond to bad news, questions, failures, very deeply influences whether a culture of psychological safety takes root. And then finally, culture as the foundation for performance. She connects culture to performance outcomes, arguing that organizations with high psychological safety foster innovation, engagement, and continuous improvement. In contrast, fear-based cultures lead to silence, stagnation, and risk aversion. As ISO management systems auditors, our work is always to include observations, interviews, and review of documented information to draw conclusions for the existence and effectiveness of any measure required by the ISO standard. That's what ISO auditors do, right? By observing these policies and procedures across an organization, we are experienced in evaluating qualitative factors that might demonstrate that any or all of these measures exist and can be documented. So qualitative factors is a normal part of what we do, and what I've just walked through hopefully are some things that we can identify as part of a strong workplace culture. And knowing what to look for and conclude enables auditors to capture qualitative information to confirm the existence of workplace culture. In 2022, the ISO 10010 standard for workplace culture was published to provide guidance to those managing ISO 9001 quality management systems to explore and nurture workplace culture. The 10010 standard provides auditors with identifiable actions to evaluate the existence and effectiveness of a workplace culture to support quality strategies, goals, and policies. Turning from the quality side of business to workplace safety along the same time frame, the ISO 45003 Psychological Health and Safety at Work Guidance Standard was published. It explores the realm of how work is organized, social factors, and workplace environments to identify the manner and means by which workplace psychological and psychosocial safety can be fostered and realized to create workplace cultures for safety. So these are two existing guidance standards that support the ISO certification standards for quality and safety that have been out for a few years, that are precursors to new elements or requirements coming forth in the next few years to these ISO certification standards. So they support what it is that we should be looking for. We'll take a deeper dive into both of those in the next session. We'll showcase those and some future elements and expectations for workplace culture that come out of the ISO world of standards, and also guidance from other studies or other measures, sources for assessing culture and its performance. There's been a lot of work in the safety side of things for a number of decades, and some of you might be very familiar with some of the things I present in the next session. So join me in the second session of this series, Measuring Workplace Culture, Tools for Auditors and Leaders, where we will consider how to recognize and measure elements of workplace culture as it evolves in your organization.